Hello folks, Rob Dreemeyer here. Welcome to Broadway Barfly. Today we're talking about one of my favorite musicals, the best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and stick around till the end because we're also making a Between the Sheets cocktail. If you're a theater fan who loves a great cocktail, click that subscribe button because Broadway Barfly is the channel for you. In 1905, a woman named Jessie Williams purchased a house on the outskirts of LaGrange, Texas, and she opened a brothel. She had a thriving business there until 1917 when she became the subject of a morality crusade, so she sold the house and purchased a piece of property farther outside the city limits and continued business as usual. Miss Jessie was a shrewd businesswoman. She advertised her establishments by having her girls send letters and care packages to local men who were serving overseas in World War I. During the Great Depression, when cash was scarce, she allegedly implemented the poultry standard, whereby they would accept one live chicken in exchange for one sex act. And this too was a good business decision because chickens laid eggs and the eggs could be sold, providing one more revenue stream for the house during these difficult times. And that's how the place became known as the Chicken Ranch. In 1952, a young woman named Edna Milton came to work at the ranch, and in addition to her nighttime duties, she eventually took on some of the day-to-day responsibilities of running the place because Miss Jessie was suffering from debilitating arthritis. When Miss Jessie passed away in 1961, Edna Milton purchased the property and took over the business. She changed the name of the place to Edna's Fashionable Boarding House for tax purposes, and she very wisely left in place all of the rules implemented by Miss Jessie. The girls were subject to weekly medical exams, and they were prohibited from fraternizing with the local townspeople. Edna purchased all of their groceries and supplies from local businesses on a rotating basis, and she donated generously to local charities. She also maintained a close relationship with law enforcement. Every evening, the sheriff would drop by the house to pick up any gossip the girls might have heard from their clientele, and he was able to solve many crimes this way based on tips he had gotten on his reconnaissance visits. And these are some of the reasons that a house of ill repute was allowed to operate as an open secret in a small Texas town. But that all changed in the early 1970s when a man named Marvin Zindler, who was a TV reporter with strong political ties from Houston, did an expose on the Chicken Ranch, citing an anonymous tip claiming it was run by organized crime. Now, the allegation was false, and Zindler later admitted that his anonymous tip was a directive from the governor, Dolph Briscoe, who was looking to boost his approval ratings. But the damage was done, and the place was shut down in 1973, in spite of a petition with 3,000 local signatures that was delivered to the governor in protest of the decision. In 1974, a writer from Texas named Larry King, who was living in New York City, wrote an article about the Chicken Ranch for Playboy magazine. Through the publication of this article, he became acquainted with some other fellow Texans living in New York, the director Peter Masterson, the composer Carol Hall, and the choreographer Tommy Tune, and together they created the musical The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. The show premiered at Actors Studio of all places, where it was seen by a woman named Stevie Phillips who worked for Universal Pictures. She convinced Universal to back the production and allow her to produce it on Broadway, where it opened in June of 1978. Now, a lot happened between the publication of the Playboy article and the Broadway opening, so much so that Larry King wrote a whole book about it called The Whorehouse Papers. One of their adventures was traveling to Texas to meet Edna Milton and to get her permission to use her story in their musical. They eventually reached an agreement, and as part of the deal, Edna Milton appeared in the original Broadway cast of the show, creating the role of Miss Willa Jean, a small role that appeared in the show's opening number and was loosely based on Edna's former boss, Miss Jessie. Carlin Glynn played Miss Mona, which was the role based on Milton herself, and Henderson Forsyth played the sheriff. Both Glynn and Forsyth won Tony Awards for their performances. Once the thrill of the Broadway opening had passed and they settled into the grind of doing 8 shows a week, Edna became tired and grew homesick. After one performance, she told the stage manager that was it, she'd had enough, she was going back to Texas. Well, that put the show in a bind because she was under contract, so the stage manager threatened to bring her up on charges with Actors' Equity. That didn't change her mind because she figured, hey, how many more Broadway musicals would she be appearing in anyway? She went back to Texas, got married, and settled in Phoenix, where she died in 2012 at the age of 84. Edna's departure had no bearing on the show's success. Whorehouse was a hit on Broadway. It ran for 4 years, and there were 4 national touring companies. There was a sort of ill-advised musical sequel of the show called The Best Little Whorehouse Goes Public that played a short-lived run on Broadway in 1994. There was a 2001 revival tour that starred Anne Margaret, but Universal Pictures really cashed in on their investment when they made the film version that starred Burt, Reynolds, and Dolly Parton. The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas film was a blockbuster. When it premiered in July of 1982, it was the highest-grossing film of the weekend, knocking E.T. out of the top position. The film is pretty faithful to the stage show, though they did write in a romantic storyline between Miss Mona and the sheriff, which is not part of the show, nor was it part of their relationship in real life. They kept most of the Broadway score intact, though they did drop a few songs to make room for songs written by Dolly Parton, including her hit, I Will Always Love You. And of course that song appeared in another film a few years later when it was recorded by Whitney Houston for the soundtrack of The Bodyguard. There are no direct cocktail references in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, probably because one of the house rules was no drinking was allowed. But I think the best cocktail to pair The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with is, what else? A Between the Sheets. The Between the Sheets is thought to have been created in the 1930s by Harry MacElhone, the owner of Harry's New York bar in Paris. MacElhone was a popular bartender in his day, having worked in New York and London and Paris after he purchased his bar from its original American owner. He turned the place into a thriving night spot that was especially popular with Americans visiting Paris. Newt Rockne, Ernest Hemingway, Humphrey Bogart, and Rita Hayworth are just some of the luminaries who are said to have spent time at Harry's New York bar. Like a lot of these older cocktails, there are conflicting stories of origin. There's another story that says it was created in 1921 at the Barclay Hotel in London. The Between the Sheets is similar to the Sidecar, which was created in London a few years earlier, so there is some credence to that story. There's another school of thought altogether that says it emerged from the brothels of France, where it was a popular aperitif among the working girls. If that story is true, at least that would explain where the cocktail got its name. But because of MacElhone's reputation and because he is accurately credited with the creation of other popular cocktails, in particular the Boulevardier, which we're going to feature in a future video, he's typically given the benefit of the doubt and the credit. The Between the Sheets is unique in that it uses 2 base spirits instead of 1. It uses equal parts cognac and rum and an equal part of triple sec. I'm using Cointreau in particular. So we're going to start with 1 ounce of our cognac, an ounce of our rum, and an ounce of our Cointreau. And then we're going to add about 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, though you could scale that back a little bit depending on your taste for tartness. And we'll give this a good shake with ice. We'll strain this into our cocktail glass. And there you have a Between the Sheets. So until the next time, cheers. If you enjoyed the video, why not give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends? Feel free to leave your comments and click that subscribe button because there's a lot more Broadway Barfly to come.